The very first words I heard on moving day weren't welcome to the neighborhood or even a polite hello. They were a sharp command. Leave immediately or face the fines. I stood there with tape stuck to my fingers, a box half slipping from my grip, and a stranger already threatening me like I was trespassing on my own property. That was the beginning of the nightmare the moment I realized this wasn't going to be a normal move-in story, it was going to be a war. My name's Evan Carter. I bought a small house in Maple Ridge, a quiet street or so, I thought. I wanted peace a yard for projects, maybe some friendly barbecues with neighbors. Instead, I got Paula Hargrove. She called herself president of the Homeowners Association like she was running the White House. She planted herself right in my path, perfectly pressed blazer folder clutched like a holy book, and demanded I explain my compliance status. I hadn't even finished unloading the first load of boxes. I tried stepping around her, but she shifted like a bouncer guarding a nightclub door. She shoved a paper at me so aggressively that I dropped my box cast iron pan hitting concrete like a gong. That sound seemed to fuel her. Noise violations, disruptive moving practices she rattled off like she was citing scripture. Then she produced the thickest blue binder I've ever held in my life. "Welcome, compliance binder," she announced. 30 days to review or daily fines starting at $50. I flipped through this endless rules about mailbox colors and grass height, muttered, "This thing is thicker than a bridge manual," and she nodded like I'd complimented her. That's when I pulled up my property app on my phone. The red boundary lines didn't match her story. I said, "Show me where my deed mentions your fines." She blinked like I'd spoken a foreign language. "Your deed is irrelevant," she snapped. "Property ownership comes with community responsibilities." I could already see it wasn't about grass or noise, it was about control. She needed me to bend to play by her invented rules. I told her we'd see about that. She turned on her heel, but not before glaring at the laser pointer on my toolbox like it was a weapon. I stood in my garage binder in one hand, frying pan in the other, already sensing this was only round one. 3 days later, she returned with backup. A little volunteer squad clipboards and name tags slapping stickers on my trash bin. Bright yellow warnings like scarlet letters. Paula announced a neighborhood unity survey code for building a case against me. I stepped out with the property app glowing on my phone and the plat map I'd printed from the county. "Perfect timing," I said, holding up a petition I'd found stuffed in her binder petition to remove non-compliant resident. The neighbors gasped. Fake signatures, identical handwriting. Her voice cracked when she stammered it wasn't official, just preliminary community feedback. I spread the map under the garage light, let the neighbors trace the red lines themselves. Mr. Peterson squinted, then said, "That means his house isn't in the HOA at all." The crowd murmured. Paula's voice rose desperate. "Authority is established through community consensus." But Lena, my next-door neighbor, who happened to work with legal documents, studied the map and said flatly, "These are county records. If he's outside jurisdiction, you have no authority." Paula's face cycled through red, white, and green like a malfunctioning stoplight. That was the first real crack, but she wasn't done. The following week, my trash bin was skipped. Every other bin emptied, mine left full bags spilling into the street. Coffee grounds exploded across Mrs. Peterson's driveway. A plastic bag fluttered in the Henderson's roses like a surrender flag. I was humiliated chasing garbage like some neighborhood delinquent. Then Lena stepped onto her porch phone recording. "They're not embarrassing you, Evan. They're exposing themselves." On video, clear as day, the truck logo, Flynn Environmental, and a receipt tucked under my wiper handwritten HOA authorization. I called Flynn. Environmental got Derek Flynn himself. He admitted Paula had called in claiming authority over the entire street. He sounded casual, like this was normal. But when I compared his dispatcher notes with the county map, half the addresses were outside HOA boundaries. Paula had convinced a company to deny city services to non-members. That was the moment I realized she wasn't just power-hungry, she was reckless enough to drag businesses into her fantasy jurisdiction. Then came the mailbox stunt. A truck arrived, workers unloading a cluster mailbox frame right in front of my yard. Paula's car idled half a block away, watching. The men said they were here to remove my individual mailbox, my federally protected mailbox, and shift me to the community system. I asked for paperwork. It was dated 2 weeks before I even moved in, pre-planned. That chilled me more than anything else she'd been scheming before I unpacked a box. They started dismantling my mailbox. Paula strutted up in a safety vest, clipboard shaking. "Mailbox uniformity is a compliance requirement," she declared, voice loud enough for the street. What she didn't count on was me dialing the post office. Within an hour, the postmaster himself walked onto the scene, crisp uniform badge flashing in the sun. He didn't waste words. "Unauthorized modification of mail systems is a federal offense," he barked, slapping a bright red violation notice onto Paula's clipboard. Neighbors gasped, someone even clapped. The postmaster examined my mailbox jammed awkwardly into the cluster frame and shook his head. "Non-compliant. Restore original immediately." Then he pulled out an eagle-emblazoned sticker, pressed it onto my box with deliberate gravity. "Tampering with mail delivery systems is a federal crime." That eagle gleamed like armor. Paula froze her clipboard, trembling, color draining from her face. She muttered something about efficiency, but everyone saw it for what it was, overreach. For the first time, she retreated, but my relief didn't last. Paula switched tactics. Fear-mongering. She went door to door, whispering that my non-compliance would tank everyone's property values. For a moment, it worked. I caught neighbors glancing at my house like I was radioactive. I lay awake wondering if I'd made a mistake buying here. Maybe she was right. Maybe my presence was going to cost everyone money. I nearly convinced myself to lay low, stop fighting. But then Mrs. Peterson knocked on my door with a stack of research. She'd dug into property records herself, and what she found flipped the script non-HOA homes often appreciated faster. Buyers liked freedom, no monthly dues, no special assessments. She was glowing when she told me like she'd uncovered buried treasure. I called real estate agents, got the same confirmation. My so-called defect was actually an advantage. That snapped me out of my spiral. I wasn't the problem. Paula's lies were. So I fought back. When she stood in the street waving her arms, shouting about market collapse, I walked out with my laptop. A licensed agent on video chat confirmed loud enough for everyone non-HOA properties often sell faster and higher. The Hendersons leaned closer, nodding. Paula's clipboard shook in her hands. She tried to deflect, but without data she looked like a fraud. Desperation drove her darker. A private Facebook group appeared full of photos of my property captioned with "Lies deteriorating standards, visual blight." Henderson showed me the screenshots. Same writing style, same grammar mistakes. Sock puppets. Worse metadata revealed photos taken from inside my yard when I wasn't home. She'd been trespassing. That was the moment the conflict shifted from nuisance to harassment. Then came her final play, an emergency neighborhood meeting. Chairs in rows, podium at the front, Paula dressed like she was hosting a town hall. She passed out petitions urging neighbors to sign away their power to her community enforcement authority. I walked in carrying a folder, thicker than her binder, county records, postal violation notices, real estate testimonies, photos with timestamps. The air was tense. She started her speech flipping fake charts, but before she could finish, a uniformed officer stepped inside. "We've received reports of false complaints filed under HOA authority." He tapped her stack of visuals. "These don't match county filings." The room gasped. Peterson rose, demanding actual sales data. Henderson asked why photos were taken from my private yard. Neighbors shifted in their seats, whispering. The petition stalled left, abandoned on a chair, pages fluttering like even the paper refused to cooperate. Then the municipal survey team arrived the next morning. Tripods, laser levels, orange stakes hammered into the ground. Each slam of the mallet erased Paula's authority in real time. Neighbors gathered clapping as the official announced boundary verified outside HOA jurisdiction. They bolted a reflective plaque to a metal post, survey completed, outside HOA area. Kids on bikes circled, chanting it like a victory song. Paula stood at her driveway, pale phone pressed to her ear, watching her empire collapse. By evening, she was removed from her presidency, fined for violations, her contractor friend Derek losing his HOA deal. I saw her one last time, boxes from the HOA office loaded into her trunk. She paused at the boundary post, looked at the sign, and whispered almost to herself, "Boundaries do matter, I suppose?" Then she drove away. I stood by that sign, the orange paint still fresh, the eagle sticker gleaming on my mailbox. After all the yelling binders and trash games, it came down to this proof law and patience. And I realized something. You don't have to scream louder than a bully, you just have to document better.